fishing, it's in my soul.
Welcome to the Salt Strong Podcast, disrupting fishing entertainment as you know it. Prepare to laugh. Prepare to get to know fishing legends in a whole new and unfiltered way. And on occasion, you might even learn a thing or two about fishing. Here's your host, Joe Simons. Like diamonds.
The power of vulnerability and my embarrassing story. Hey everybody, Joe Simons, Like Diamonds, back again, Salt Strong Unchurched. By far the podcast where I have shared something about myself, a struggle from anxiety to alcohol or whatever it is, that the true stories have been the ones that get the most downloads. They're the ones that get the most comments. They're the ones that draw us, me and you, closer together. The stories where I share in-depth struggles and challenges that I've faced and have overcome or maybe not overcome, those are the ones that I feel like connect us and just make us stronger. And I believe God has called us to share our stories. That is how we learn. That is how we connect. That's how we even build relationships. We feel like we're closer to someone when they share something that could be vulnerable. And the bad news is, it almost is like, why is it that so many of us are afraid to share some of the embarrassing stories or really bad challenges, or maybe even just suffering and tough things that we've gone through? I think, at least for me, it's kind of the macho man, even our company, Salt Strong, right? Big, bold, and strong. And it's almost like I had this fear that if I told people that I'd struggled with anxiety, or if I put that out there, that, you know, everyone's going to think that we're weak, or that I'm weak in particular. And then, oh man, these guys, gosh, had anxiety attacks and, you know, struggle with all these different things. Ooh, man, they're not strong, they're weak. And that was my fear. And the irony is, it only built relationships. It only got more people relating with me, and more people who have emailed me and said, hey man, I struggle with that same thing, or my child struggled with that same thing. And we now have this bond. We feel more connected than ever before. And so I am going to tell you a story here that happened very recently. And was, at the time, I felt quite embarrassing, but also at the end of the story is more of a happy ending, not to ruin it for you. But it's just so powerful what a true story of a challenge overcome, or a struggle, or a tough time in life, or just one of those chapters in our life where nothing's working, and how we got through it, sharing that with someone. I believe not only does it connect us, but it is freeing. It was so freeing for me to start finally talking about my anxiety attacks. It's almost like it disabled some of the power that it had over me. And I get a lot of emails about people that suffer from anxiety and have watched my video. And that's one thing I talk about is, hey, don't just share it with me, you don't have to share it with the world, but find some people that you can talk to and trust, and just tell them. It is amazing. It's almost like this just burden comes off of our shoulders, and we just feel more free. There is definitely freedom by sharing some of our past experiences. And that doesn't mean we have to live in them and relive them and dwell in them. And certainly it should never cause us to suffer. I'm talking about just candidly sharing what we went through and what we learned from it. And I don't know, it's just so magical. So here's the story. I get invited to a very, very beautiful, amazing, like 10 plus, let's just say $15 million house in Miami near South Beach. And it's a bunch of other CEOs. And I am the new person there. And let's just say there's 40 something different CEOs from all over the country. And most of them, not all of them, but most of them had met before. And so I knew I was kind of coming in as the newer person that didn't really know anyone. This is kind of a networking event, et cetera. And I was so nervous. One, even though I am very gregarious, and if you've met me or even seen me on videos, I am a lot of what you see, meaning on the videos, like I'm funny and I don't mind talking in front of a crowd, but me doing a networking event or me going into a room or, a $15 million house with strangers, especially strangers who know each other, and I'm coming in as kind of the new guy and trying to like work my way into a conversation, that is not my wheelhouse. I mean, that gives me like actually anxiety. I try not to use that word because I'd suffered through it for so long, but it truly like it's really, really tough for me. And can you relate, right? Some people love that. Like I've got a friend who loves that. Like it's a female, and she just thrives on that. Just meet new people, and she'd know the whole room by then. And sometimes that's the case for me, but it takes me a long, long, long time just to like sometimes get the courage up to find that first group. And I found myself at one point in there, like everyone's having their own conversations. It would be like, going into a reunion where you didn't go to that school, right? Because all these people had known each other and had past experiences, and they're all like chatting it up. And I'm sitting there like looking around, like trying to find someone who's not in conversation. Everyone was. So I was like, all right, I'm going to walk down to the water and just kind of check it out. And, talking to one of the workers there that was kind of helping host this event, and lo and behold, someone else who also didn't know many people came up and saw that I was over there talking to a worker, and we ended up hitting it off. But long story short, I'm just being honest with you. I was very, very, I was vulnerable in that moment of just not knowing anyone, and it's not my wheelhouse to just walk into a conversation and, hey, I'm Joe. I don't even know how to do that. I really, really struggle with it. So all that being said, I'm now having a great conversation with a different person. Because as the night went on, there's a little bit of wine out there. People start opening up, and I met this gentleman from Massachusetts who runs a pretty big company, and he's like, "Hey, you're one of the new guys, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, this is my first time at one of these events." And he goes, "Well, I'm going to warn you. Once we sit down for dinner, there's going to be a lot of like pretty deep questions asked." And I thought he was kidding around. Like this was like a wine. This was advertised as a wine tasting, like a food tasting event at this private house for CEOs, and so and networking, obviously. And so I'm like, "Are you being serious?" He's like, "Yeah." Like he's like, "I mean, you'll see tears shed, and like it's pretty deep questions." He's like, "I'm gonna just warn you up front because I wasn't warned. I wish someone had told me." He's like, "Just prepare yourself." And he's like, "And just know, if you sit at Mark is the head guy. This guy's, worth hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. Like if you sit at his table, like, it will be intense." And I kept thinking, I was like, "Dude, are you being serious?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "All right." So now I'm kind of freaked out. I'm kind of freaked out. I'm like, what the heck am I getting myself into? I'm already nervous, and I don't know anyone here. And now I'm going to have to get in front of people and answer really tough questions. So like, whatever. So I keep meeting more people. I'm really having a fun time. Like I'm starting to meet a few people that I have a lot of stuff in common with, and some other people that fish. And I'm really having a good time. And I kind of forgot about everything that he said, because I'm having some great conversations, and we're all outside. We watched the sunset. We had a couple glasses of wine, and I'm chatting with this guy from South Florida. He's got just some wild stories and boating and stuff. And all of a sudden I turn around and like everyone's gone, and it happened like so quick. And what had happened is it was kind of like everyone knew to go inside for dinner. I guess they heard the dinner bell ringing. We didn't. So it's just the two of us. I let him go first, still not really thinking about it. And I see like everyone's already sitting down. Everyone's already at tables, and these are tables of 7 people. And with some of the staff and some of this guy's staff at his company, there's, I don't know, 7, 8 tables of 7 people each. And there's one table there with 2 open seats right kind of near me. So I was like, "Oh, cool. I'll take this one." And then it hits me. I was like, all right, the one guy told me that there's going to be some questions. So I'm like, already my heart's starting to beat faster. And then I look around to see where Mark, the owner, is, and I don't see him. And I was like, wait, there's one extra seat at this table. And all of a sudden, out of the side bathroom comes Mark, this head guy this guy is very well-known author. Like I said, he's, this is one of his multiple homes is, $14-15 million house on the water in Southeast Miami. And I'm just sitting like, oh my gosh, I'm about to have to answer these questions. And I'm at the table with Mark, the big dog, who I literally just briefly met. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm freaking out. I'm like super, super nervous, like about to start sweating, nervous. And without missing a beat, he's, he takes ownership of the table. I mean, this guy is just such a stud. He's an amazing person. And, I now thank him for making us go deep. But he goes, all right, guys, you're going to see to your right-hand side, each of you are going to have some cards. Flip over the first one now. It'll be a question. And these were all a little bit different. And so my first one, I won't even go into it, but it wasn't that tough. It was, just like some achievement that I'm proud of. And then, the person next to me got pretty in depth on like, what was biggest regrets and some challenges. And I mean, one guy, shared about, daughter and some suicide stuff, like some pretty deep stuff is coming out. There's even some like tears already shed. And I'm like, whoa, this is intense. And then I get my second card. So I'm picking my second card, and it was like, what was one of the toughest things you've ever faced? And I thought about it for a while, and, there's been a lot of things that I faced, but I mean, in general, that it goes back to just dealing with that daily anxiety for over a decade. And I started sharing that story, and Mark's pulling more stuff out of me. And before you know it, I'm talking about the things I missed out on, and a girl that I truly loved and cared a lot for, and just completely destroyed that relationship, and missed out on one of my best friends, my college roommates, wedding, all because of anxiety attacks. I wasn't even ill, but my body felt like I was. And I'm just talking about all these things that I missed, that I felt like I missed out on in life, and just how tough it was to plan every single day around anxiety, and always had an escape route. And I even stopped, going to church and doing things that I actually enjoyed doing, because I was so scared that I was going to have an anxiety attack and look bad, right? Because I knew, just like anyone who suffers from really bad anxiety panic attacks, I mean, the stats are there. No one has actually ever died. So if you always talk about what's the worst that can happen, not a single person in the world has died from an anxiety attack or panic attack. Think about that. Not a single person has actually died. You feel like you're going to die. You feel like you're having a heart attack, heart's beat a million miles an hour, but no one has actually died from it. Right. And so, like, anyhow, going back to the story, I'm talking about all these things that I've missed out on, and it's going deeper and deeper into this, and just the feelings around that, and so even some of the regrets around it, and like, man, if I could change things. And I'm like tearing up. There's a few other people, tearing up at the table. Like, it went really, really, really deep. And I finally kind of finished, and I'm literally got some legit tears going down my face. I got pretty emotional, and I just took a deep breath, and I was like, I run a fishing company called Salt Strong, and I was like, I never in a million years would have thought I'd walk through these front doors today and be sharing this with you, and actually be crying at a table in front of 7 strangers. And everyone kind of, laughed, and I'll never forget, it was a special moment. Mark said, he's like, Joe, he's like, I feel so close to you because of what you shared. I'm like, boom. Whoa. And that was obviously not the reason I did it. I didn't even want to do it. That's not why I had zero intention of even bringing that up to complete strangers in this man's house. But as soon as he said it, I was like, that was it. Like, by me just sharing a pretty vulnerable story, and really a weakness, and right, that's the only way to describe that. It was an actual flaw and a weakness that I struggled with for many, many years. It brought me closer together with everyone there at the table. I mean, how powerful is that? And even at the end, I mean, this is a guy, once again, who sold multiple companies, hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. And he went out of his way, to come up and shake my hand. He's like, Joe, I just want to thank you for sharing that. That was awesome. Like, the table needed that. And even afterwards, people shared even a little bit more. So as the night went on, we had more and more stories, and people were just so open. And I became closer to those people on the table. There's some people that shared stuff I'm obviously not going to talk about, but wow, like, I became closer. And I was getting goosebumps hearing some of their stories. And it also made me realize, I guarantee there's people in Miami that have gone by this guy's house, and even forget this guy's house, that you've gone by some, super wealthy 10 million plus house, and like, oh man, they have it all. They have no problems. And even the stuff that Mark shared, holy smokes. I mean, this guy's been through a lot. I mean, a lot. Stuff that some of us can't even comprehend. And so the point of that is to say that all of us are going through something, regardless if you're a billionaire or regardless, if you're struggling to pay off some old debt. Doesn't even matter the money wise, just regardless of where you are in life, we're all going through something in every single one of our chapters. And a lot of it is going to come down to how did we deal with it? What are the lessons we learned? And then also too, what I feel like God is calling us to do is to share it with others so that we can learn. I learned a lot about how these other people in this room overcame things, some that I've dealt with, some that I haven't had to deal with yet, but might have to deal with in the future with kids and spouses and businesses. I mean, I think that is something so special, and you can learn so much from that. Yeah, you can learn other things as well, and you can learn from a cool little tip or trick or tactic, but to hear from someone's utmost challenges and sufferings and mistakes and how they overcame that, wow, that is so, so, so powerful. So I just wanted to share that story with you because it just happened. It was fresh in my head. Hopefully you get a little bit of laugh visualizing me walking through this doors of this, mansion on the water in Miami and, complete strangers. And all of a sudden, a couple hours later, I'm sitting there tearing up and in front of all of them, sharing this story. It was wild. So I don't know if Mark will ever hear this, but I want to thank him so much for really, having the courage to bring people in together and kind of forcing them, if you will, to go through these exercises. It was the most powerful part of the night. And it was something I thought about and a lot on the drive home back to Winter Haven from Miami the next day. And I obviously still continue to think about. And I went in thinking it was going to be some networking and drinking some nice wine. And I came out with honestly some new friends and a little bit of a different perspective on just life and how powerful it is when we share some of those experiences with others. And so I would challenge you, if there's something that's been in your heart or even something that just weighs you down and you think about constantly, the power of sharing that struggle. And regardless if you shed any tears or not, because some of us have some, kind of emotional baggage and stuff that we have to carry around, and it's not easy. But I would urge you to share it, not with the world. You don't have to get on a podcast and share it. That's a whole next level, but just start with one person. That is the key. Start with one person. You never know what that other person is going through. And that was another big lesson. From hearing these people, you just assume, these are all wealthy CEOs. They all have it made. They don't have any challenges and they just got people to take care of their stuff. Whoa, that is the complete opposite. Every single person there was going through something pretty deep or had gone through something pretty recently that was pretty deep. And wow, it's just amazing how similar and alike we all are, and how much we're craving for just truth and honest relationships where people aren't afraid to share like that. And we're not just proving, right, or hiding, which is what most of us do, that we're just able to be vulnerable and to be ourselves and to talk about the truth that's going on in all of our lives. So hope that makes sense. Hope you guys enjoy this one. I will continue to make a point to share more and more stories. I feel better every time I record one of these podcasts when I get even getting this story off of my chest. A little bit helped. Because honestly, when it all shortly after that happened, I was just like, what in the world? How did I cry in front of these strangers? But then afterwards, I realized why God put me in that exact seat at that exact time, sitting across from Mark, the head guy. That was all happened for a reason. And honestly, like, had I been given the choice when that guy told me earlier in the day, he kind of gave me the warning, I would have sat at a different table and trying to like hide from it all, right? Because it causes some nervousness and some anxiety, and no one really wants to share that stuff. But when we do, magic happens. So share, go out there and be loving. And hit me up if you have any questions, thoughts, etc. Joe@saltstrong.com. I love hearing from all the listeners, and I try to get back to everyone. Otherwise, I will talk to you on the next episode.
'Cause fishing, it's in my soul, it was pain.